Hello, everyone, and welcome back to FreakSense TV. This is episode number 1 of the Charlie Freak podcast series. Last week, I sat down and had an amazing discussion with none other than Mike Williams, the Sage of Quay. Now, this represents part 1 of a 4-part series entitled Everything You Know is a Lie, and Would You Like to Hear Some Truth? Mike and I had an amazing conversation that covered an enormous amount of material that is both enlightening and important subject matter that everyone should listen to. Part 2 in the series will be with Crow 777, and then Mark Devlin, and then concluding with David Weiss from Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. So sit back, relax, enjoy. I know you're going to love this show, as I'm able to feature Mike Williams as a guest rather than the host. And in the role of a guest, Mike is able to speak his mind fully. And again, you're going to love what Mike has to say about this subject matter. It's an amazing podcast. Enjoy the ride, and I will see you with part 2 and Crow 777 in the coming days. Thank you. Enjoy. Mike, thank you very, very much for being on our podcast, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you for having me on.
It is a great pleasure, Mike. What I wanted to do at the beginning of this particular episode is start off by talking about the fact that you are a very good musician and have basically spent your entire life in and around music. And don't you even have on YouTube a channel with regard to guitar playing?
I have a channel that is dedicated to guitar repair and upgrades. Yep. Okay,
fantastic. Now, you have released 2 albums. In 2013, it was Dystopia. And just recently, I think the release date was February of this year, and that is Hollow Moon.
Right.
And what I was going to ask, if we could start off by you just sharing some general thoughts about your music, and then in particular, the sort of the heart and soul to your latest album, Hollow Moon.
Like you've mentioned, Charlie, I've been into music for a very long time. I started playing guitar probably around the age of 14 or 15. And I was in bands when I was younger, and I spent a lot of time during the late 1970s and into the 80s trying to secure a record contract or even a publishing contract. But it was becoming very difficult. All of the major labels do not accept unsolicited material. So if you send them something, they will you'll get your tape back within 2 or 3 weeks with a nice letter from them saying that they don't accept unsolicited material. So basically, to make it a short story, what happens is sooner or later you have to pay the bills. So I had to essentially move away from the trying to secure a life of music, a career of music, and I wound up in the corporate world. And I was still playing songs. I was still writing original songs, but that started to wane as I got more and more invested in my career in the corporate world. And so then what happened was I never stopped playing, but it just got less and less. And that started to weigh on me because I would go back to knowing that I love playing guitar, playing keyboards, and I wasn't doing it to the degree that I wanted to be doing it. So it was kind of a heaviness that I felt, and I had to break out. So in the 2011 timeframe, early 2011, I decided that I was going to release an album, a full-blown album. And because now we're in a time where we can self-publish and we can just get stuff out there. I mean, that's one of the good things about everybody wants to come down on technology, but the truth of the matter is the technology can be used for good things, and so this self-publishing is a very good thing, right? So I worked on the album. I wrote the songs. I had the songs written, I guess, over a couple of years, maybe 2009, 10, 11. I called the album, the first album, Leaving Dystopia, and dystopia just meaning dysfunction. I'm leaving the dysfunction. I'm getting that behind me, and we're going to move forward into a better place. And that was released, as you mentioned, in February of 2013. I think 2013. The album was well received. There were reviews on the internet, good reviews. I was very pleased about that. People who had heard the album or folks that I handed the album out to. Very good feedback. So I was very happy about that because the message of the album was really a message of awakening. And I felt that I can get people to awaken in a number of ways. One would be, to do a blog, to have a website, to do a podcast. And I wasn't doing those things at that time, although the blog followed soon after the album. But it was a vehicle in which that I can get what I thought was the truth out there, or some semblance of the truth to wake people up. In between the albums, what happened was I got into the blog, and the radio show is now over 4 years old, and that occupied a lot of my time. But I thought it was time to put another album out because over that period of time, I was also still recording songs, and I had 8 songs on the recorder in various forms of being finished. And I decided to sit down last year in 2017 and finish those songs completely and get the album out. And that album, the second album, is Hollow Moon. So it came 5 years after the first album, Leaving Dystopia. I think the album Hollow Moon has a different vibe to it than Leaving Dystopia. I think Leaving Dystopia was probably a little more lighter in a way, where Hollow Moon has some of the songs, maybe a heavier message. Not all of the songs. And some of the songs are, I consider to be lighter. I was just talking to my daughter about this the other day because she was asking me about the 2 albums. But in any case, so Hollow Moon is another album I put out to get the word out. And when I did it this time, I tried to do it in a way with a lot of the songs where it had to do with doing it within a relationship with your partner, whether, your wife, your husband, or whoever your partner is, working together to be able to make change in the world. And that's really the underlying theme on the album. If I take a look back and I try to assess it, again, the album, based upon feedback that I've gotten from folks who have listened to it, has been very positive. I'm very happy about that. I have told folks, look, there's 8 songs on the album. If there's just 1 song or 2 songs that resonate with you and you get something from it, I've done my job. So I'm very glad that you asked me about it because I don't get to talk about the album very often. My shows are more geared toward, the stuff that I talk about, the conspiracy research, and not so much about the music.
Well, and I really wanted to do so because going back to the first album, these are great records. And you're talking about Leaving Dystopia and positive reviews. There still are positive reviews out there. So I just doing a quick check on sort of seeing what the general sentiment was about Hollow Moon, just to get a feedback from my perspective. And then there was still all of this information out there and reviews and comments on Leaving Dystopia, and they're all very, very positive. And again, from someone who's listened to both albums, these are very good records. And for anyone out there who is a fan of Mike's work, and I think that's probably very, very hard not to be within the truth movement community, these albums kind of capture the essence to all of that information, and then they apply how I kind of see it, Mike, is that it's you letting your heart out through your music. So we get to see your mind a lot because you're constantly hosting your show, so you're operating out of your cognitive reasoning quite a bit. But on the album, we get to see another side and a deeper side to Mike, and that is through the heart. And folks, if you take the time to listen, and I mean give them a good listen to these songs, especially with the new album, Hollow Moon, there is so much there. On the surface, first time through, they're very, very infectious songs. But if you go through that second time, that second pass, there's so much more that starts to come to you in the music. And I think you've done a wonderful job, Mike. I'm a big fan. And as I was saying to you before the show, I really, really like the closing track, which is the title track of the album, and in that particular message as well, Hollow Moon. Did you want to discuss maybe just a bit about that message?
Well, Hollow Moon is basically about the esoteric nature of our existence. That's really what it is in a nutshell. And when I put the song out, there were a handful of folks that I know, friends on Facebook and the such, that got it. They understood completely what it is that I was trying to put out there as far as the message. And that's essentially what Hollow Moon is. And it's the fact that what we are told about existence, or what we're taught, or what is, I should really say, imposed upon us about what life is about, it's not even close. And we have to open our eyes, we have to open our minds and spread our wings to really understand what it's all about. And that's really what Hollow Moon is all about. I'm just trying to get that message out. The song is a little cryptic in a way, Charlie, because one of the things that I like to do with the songs is I want the listener to pull a message out from the song that resonates with them. It's almost done like a metaphor in ways. So if I try to dictate exactly what the song is supposed to be about, I mean, I can do that. But I always found it more interesting to write the song and the lyrics in a way, especially the lyrics, that allows the person who's listening to it to formulate their own thoughts about what does this mean to them? Not what does it mean to Mike, because it means something to me, but you as the listener, what does it mean to you? And that's one of the reasons why the lyrics in Hollow Moon are the way they are.
Yeah, and I very much got that right away, and that's part of why during our pre-show discussion, we were going over the dualistic concepts of allegory versus applicability. And what you're describing and the way that you wrote Hollow Moon, the temptation to make that an allegory must have been pretty extreme. But you did such a great job of writing it in such a way with applicability that there is your message encoded in it, and it's there for anyone to just let it wash over you and you'll see it. But what you're doing, and that's what I think the great songwriters always did, is you're allowing us to pull our experiences into your experience, and then it is kind of a union, a bond between the listener and the artist, the creator yourself, and it provides a much deeper, more profound message as a result.
No, I agree. It's very important that, from my perspective, when I write music, that I allow the listener to formulate their own feelings and understanding of what it means. I can tell you a funny story real quick. On my first album, I have a song called Free.
Yeah.
And Free is all about unshackling from this apparatus, this nonsense that we are trying to break out of here. So to me, it was very clear what that song was about. And so I ran into a friend, this is going back a couple of years ago. She said to me, Mike, I really like that song Free. And she said, that must have been one hell of a relationship that you were in. And I started laughing, and I thought to myself, wow. So I said to her, Susan, I said, that song is not about a relationship. I tried to explain it to her, but that was a perfect example of somebody who was listening to these lyrics. I meant it to be one thing, and it meant something completely different to her.
Yeah.
Completely different, right? So I don't know. I mean, it's in a way, it's a lot of fun to have that dynamic between you and the person who's the listener to the song.
Yeah, no, that is a great story, and of course, to just imagine Springsteen with what on the surface could be seen as a very, very personal album in Born to Run. I'm sure that over the years he's heard 1,000 different takes of how it has mimicked his fans' lives, to the letter. And he's heard that through their perspective as well. And that's what the great songwriters do, and that's really what I see with both of the albums as well, especially with Hollow Moon. And again, I really do encourage everyone to go find these records. I checked them today on now the two sites. Did I see it on Amazon? I think?
It's on Amazon. It's on iTunes. It's all over the place. My publisher, TuneCore, has the album distributed worldwide, and you can get it in many, many places.
Yeah, and I'll have all the information on the show notes here for everyone to see and to have full access to. And again, it's just higher level thought, higher level consciousness in creating something that is more than just the music, and it's more than just the lyrics. It's a synchronicity between the two of them. It's a really wonderful thing. And again, with your schedule, personal, what you're doing now, paying the bills, your incredible schedule with regard to the Sage of Quay and all those shows and important information that you're putting out there, to do the album on top of that and to do it this well, Mike, thank you very much. And I know that I'm speaking for a lot of people when I say that.
No, thank you, Charlie. I really appreciate that because it was a lot of work.
Yeah, very much. You can hear it and see it and feel it in all of the songs. So again, thank you. Okay, let's segue from all of that, which is great information, into the heart of our podcast today. The title for the podcast that I created, and I'm going to be doing this with yourself, and then coming up next with Mark Devlin, and I'm actually going to approach with a couple of other folks the same title, because I want to take a number of highly respected individuals through this and get their individual takes on it. Is everything that you've been taught is a lie, and would you like to hear some truth? And the essence to what I'm saying is that everything that society has taught to us in a very structured, organized way is indeed a lie. And this isn't some kind of grandiose statement that's, designed to clickbait really in. This is our reality. And it isn't a fun thing to have to say, but it's where we need to get to. And I really wanted to start with you because just a couple of weeks ago, I think, with your show with Crow, the two of you had an amazing hour and a half run talking back and forth in a very free manner about this very, very subject. So let's just start your general thoughts about the title to the show and how you feel right now about this issue.
Well, the title of the show came from a conversation I had with Ole Damagard going back maybe about 2 years ago or so. And during that conversation, I said to Ole that anything worth knowing is a lie. And so that just stuck with me because as you do the research, Charlie, as you know, because you've done your fair share of research, we know that it's true, that wherever you look, it's a lie. And so when I did the show with Crow, there was no script for that show. There were no questions. We just connected and we just started chatting and talking. We got into that whole bit, which is that if you look at your government, it's a lie. If you look at the school system, it's a lie. If you look at medicine, it's a lie. If you look at the justice system, it's a lie. Everything is a lie. Your media is a lie. Everything is about indoctrination. Everything is about propaganda. Everything is about conditioning and mind control. That's what it is at the end of the day. And trying to convince the masses that this is as good as it gets. Basically, that's what they're trying to get across. So if you look at medicine as an example, they'll say, well, Western medicine is the best medicine in the world. Well, there was a time when I used to believe that. But now you come to realize after digging in and doing the research and doing your homework that is not true at all, that they have suppressed many, many cures for many, many diseases and disorders. And you're just not ever going to know about it because there's no money in it for them. None, right? So they have to make their pharmaceuticals and do their surgeries and all that stuff. That's Western medicine, pills and surgery. So when you boil it down to that, how can that be the very best possible route from a perspective of medicine? And I'm just picking on that as an example, but no matter where you look, if you look hard enough, you will uncover lies and deception. And I know that sounds unbelievable to a lot of people, Charlie. They just will not accept that. There's got to be truth somewhere, Mike. Yeah, there is truth someplace. It's within you. The truth is within you, and you have to go seek out the truth. If you're going to expect that people are going to hand you the truth, especially in this realm in which we're operating in, that's not going to happen. You have to find it from within you. That's where the truth lies. And that's where a lot of people, that's where they get jammed up, because they have abdicated their responsibilities as a human to use their God-given gift of intellect and to take accountability and responsibility for their lives and to go seek truth. They would rather just sit there and have people dictate to them what it is that they should do, or where they should be, or what they should eat, or where they should go, and so on. And it's really a sad state of affairs. But that's why you and I and many others are doing the work that we're doing, to try to get people to wake up and understand, hey, you need to get up. You need to get up on your feet. And you need to understand how this really works, because when you do, things will get better, a lot better than they are right now.
Fantastic points across the board, and they really speak to the heart of the message that I'm creating. And what's going to be coming out on FreakSense TV in the next couple of days, we'll have the first episode. It's a big one. The first episode is 90 minutes. And then from there, each one is going to be about 40 minutes in duration. It's a 10-part series on this very title, which is that everything you know is a lie, and would you like to hear some truth? And really, like you said, for most people who exist out there in that big, bad, ugly world out there, they're just going to shake their head, and the information is going to go right past them, because the biggest obstacle for change on any kind of scale, I mean, forget any kind of grand scale, just consider your own household. The average household that exists, and no longer just in the Western world, but anywhere across this vast plane, is going to be a hard sell with this kind of message. And it really is a difficult process for you because of something called cognitive dissonance. And until people come to confront what this is, what this actually means, how it works, and how it's affecting control over our reality, they're not going to get to the heart of this message and this show. And what I'm going to share with you right now, Mike, and we're going to work our way through all the information to it, is this. Everyone continues to talk along the lines. Alex Jones is, I think, the one that probably pushed most of us down this aspect of the rabbit hole so forcibly, and that is that what's coming is far, far, far worse than what exists right now. And what's coming is a representation of these works of fiction created by the likes of George Orwell or Aldous Huxley, who both came from privileged, wealthy families with ties to Freemasonry. And they just happen to write books that scare people very, very much along the lines of what George Carlin talked about with one of his great HBO specials. And what Carlin said in that show was that the reason poor people exist is to scare the shit out of the middle class, which distracts them away from the fact that rich people do none of the work, take virtually all of the money, pay none of the taxes. The middle class exists, does all of the work, pays virtually all of the taxes. Poor people are there to just scare the shit out of the middle class and keep them showing up to their job. And that's what 1984, in my opinion, and A Brave New World are there for. And one of the reasons, when you look at those speeches, when incredibly, former President George H.W. Bush, when he had those 2 or 3 speeches about the New World Order, which is just staggering because, at the time America post-Reagan was so in love with, nationalism and that jingoistic fever, he was talking about this odd perspective about the United Nations and coming together in this new world order. And every time HW talked about this new world order, he would always say, and we'll get there. And he would always snicker, you know, in a very similar way to when he was talking about the JFK assassination and Jerry Ford's role, and he had that little snicker there about JFK. He always would snicker about this new world order. And the reason that he snickered is because it's already here. And this is letting the cat out of the bag about this 10-part video series on FreakSense TV about Everything is a Lie. This is my major supposition, that what we are living in is the end game. It's now. 1984 and Aldous Huxley's Brave New World are right now. And how can I prove this? How can I win you over? Anybody else who's watching the show win you over? Simply, quickly, easily? It works this way. If there was something worse than this coming, if there was going to be this world that of Alex Jones FEMA camps and population segregated and put away, and or a large portion exterminated, get us down to that 500 million, or the 500 million away from 7 billion. These narratives, that puts us into fight or flight mode. That drops us from we're not even close to the frontal lobe anymore, but it takes us out of the middle brain and it drops us right down into our primary brain, which is the reptilian part, which is just a mechanism for survival, which is fight or flight. And here's the thing. If everything we talk about tonight is accurate, then this show will prove this general thesis out 100 times over. Because if we ever get to the point of fight or flight, it doesn't matter whether you and I, which I'm sure both of us would probably fight, it doesn't matter whether we run from this insanity or we stand up and fight to it. Theirs is a house of cards. Theirs is an illusion. All of this works through one thing and one thing only, and that is complicity. If we are complicit with the system, showing up to them jobs and paying these taxes, if we are complicit with the system, then we're on our knees. And when we're on our knees, they stack those cards up in such a way that they appear to be steel girders and beams. They're not. They're paper cards. And the moment we get up off of our knees, and it doesn't matter whether it's to confront them and fight or to turn and run, if we stop showing up to these jobs, cities collapse within days. This isn't, again, any kind of exaggeration. Cities will collapse within 2 weeks if people stop showing up to jobs. And I know you know this, Mike, they have gutted corporations. And I come from the finance world with an international corporation at a very high level. So I know that for the last 25 years, the secretive goal within these corporations, all of them, has been gutting out the corporation. There's nothing left inside. There are no investments. There are no long-term bonds and other type of clever fiduciary investments. Everything has been gutted. They're paying all of their board of directors and investors their bonuses every single year. So at the end of every fiscal year within these international corporations, there's nothing left. So if suddenly the demand stops for all of this supply, the system collapses in very short order because there's nothing there. Of course, they can always call upon their cronies to just print up some more of that fake money that they're doing. But the very basis to this system is illusory at its nature. So if they ever get to a point of camps and this enforced enslavement, fight or flight, and when we're in fight or flight, the whole system crashes. Now, that's a lot for you to hear because we didn't discuss this in the pre-show, so I'd appreciate some thoughts from you on that.
Well, it is a system of commerce, Charlie. So that's why they're always looking for economic growth. That's why they have this whole consumerism mentality. And you're right. We support, I'm talking about the people collectively, we support the system by buying into the fact that you have to have this economy. It has to grow. It doesn't matter. You can't have anything in the way. If you have to mow down the Amazon because, that's going to grow the economy, it's going to mean more business, then we're just going to mow down the Amazon. And when people stop buying into that and they take a step back and say, okay, I'm done with this. I'm done with this consumerism. I don't need to participate in this. The whole thing will collapse. But they've got people so bought into the fact that they need stuff that they really don't need. I've had people tell me that fiat money is not backed by anything. And I said, oh, but it is. And they say, oh, no, it's not. But what do you mean it is? It's backed by consumerism. As long as you believe that you can continue to go buy flat screen TVs and, phones and all the crap that people buy all the time, needless stuff, inane stuff, then that's what keeps their money in play. As soon as you back off from that stuff, you don't buy that stuff anymore, the whole thing collapses. You're exactly right. This is why after 9/11, after, the towers came down, Bush Jr. came out and said, hey,
that's right.
Go out, spend money.
That's
Go out,
right.
spend money. Don't let the terrorists scare you. Get out there. That's why, because they were very concerned. Because after that, what happened was there was a standstill on people spending money, on people traveling. It came to a halt. And that scared the living shit out of them. So you had to go send the puppet out there to tell them, okay, all right, it was scary, but don't be that scared. Continue to buy and purchase things and buy things, that you don't need. They have to keep this perpetual motion machine going. And even within the psyche of humans, this is why they have to work 24/7, 365 days a year to propagandize and condition people through the media and all that stuff. Because if they don't do it all the time, Charlie, if they don't do it consistently, the natural propensity for humans is to resort back to their natural state of being.
Thank you for saying that.
Right? So, and your natural state of being says that you're going to have balance in your life and you're going to engage in creative and imaginative types of engagements or interactions. You might have a hobby, you might be creating something, whatever it may be. That's the human nature. But in order to keep humans, to keep them off balance and to continue to have them backpedaling, they have to hit us with this stuff every single minute of every single day. That they have to work very hard, Charlie, in order for them to implement their agenda. This is what people don't understand. They have to work very, very hard at it. And if people start to wake up, what's going to happen is, like you said, it's going to come apart. It's going to fall apart on them. The problem is getting people to wake up at least to a point where there's enough, a critical mass, where it starts to make a dent. And I don't know what that number is. All I know is that my job is to keep going and just keep doing what I'm doing to get people to get to that point.
Yeah, it is. And I think this is also why, it certainly is why Colleen and I chose to come out of the shadows and to present a unified front and face here. We just wanted to help. We're noticing the changes that are starting to take place within the truth community, and I think you're, as typical, leading the way. I've had a lot of discussions with Mark, and I don't want to speak for Mark. We'll have him on the show very soon, and he'll be able to speak for himself. But I can say that Mark is very much on the same page with you and I, with all of this. And the message that needs to be said is not fear porn. It is empowerment. And this is the essential. Once you understand the basis, and you did such a wonderful, eloquent job of explaining the trap that they've created for themselves. And they have dug deep because their system doesn't work unless it's on 24/7, 365. And
right.
Just like you nailed it perfectly, because we are beautiful natural creations. However you want to explain that out, however you want to
to see us, human beings are not specks of dust, and we are not some random chance anomalies. The human eyeball tells you this. A single strand of DNA tells you that. Darwin had no answer for those two things, the human eyeball, a single strand of DNA. He knew that those two things disproved his ridiculous notion of evolution. We are incredible creations. And in fact, that we know so just by being aware of how asleep we are while we're awake throughout the day. Think of how many people who are commuting back and forth to work every day find themselves 2, 3, 4, even 5, 6, 10 minutes at a time in their vehicle, suddenly coming back into a sense of awareness or consciousness and going, oh my God, I've been driving at 80 miles an hour on the freeway for the last 10 minutes, and where was I?
Right.
The human brain does millions of functions within seconds and minutes of our awakened reality, and we have no idea what it's doing and how it's doing it. And when you start to look into the true explanation of how any of our major organs or how our senses actually work, it is almost virtually the opposite of what most people would attribute the truth to these things. The opposite, the upside down of reality. And so as a result, in our natural state in form, we will revert back to what we are, which is children of nature in very, very short order. And as soon as we go outside, we're very much back in our natural setting. You know, if you don't have a football to pick up and throw back and forth, you'll find anything to play with. We did that as kids. I didn't need any trucks or toys as a kid. I just needed myself and imagination, and I was gone for 8-10 hours a day, having to be called back at dinner time to come home, because we're at home in nature, because that's what we are. And so their illusory system, as you said, must be on 24/7, 365. And what it does is it pumps out little lies to procure the big lie. And the big lie is, as we touched upon this, and I'll bring this one out now as well. We touched upon this in the pre-show. The big lie is this fundamental perspective of how we see life. Most people, virtually, I would imagine 99% of the huddled masses living in cities, believe that there is a world or a universe that exists. It's always existed, or it's existed for untold amounts of time, and that it will continue to exist for untold amounts of time long after our little brief flash of light comes and goes. And that the best we can do as these flukes of evolution to be here for our little 15 minutes of fame is to navigate our road the best we can, try and stay right side up, and try as best we can to have a good life and avoid cancer. What I came to realize on my own as a teenager, sort of opting out of the middle of the road of society and just going my own path and discovering sort of my own way, and being heavily immersed in some really great music at the time, was that maybe there's an alternative. And to me, that alternative is that there is a second explanation to all of this, and that the world out there only exists through the eyes, the ears, all of the senses of the individual. In other words, that we are the magical creations of this marriage between this yin and yang relationship between the Holy Father coming down from the heavens and the Heavenly Mother rising up from the earth, the non-physical, the physical, the unknowing, the touchable, tangible knowing. And that when we open our eyes, all of this happens. All of this comes into existence. And that maybe, just maybe, that the big out there exists for us.
And just maybe the big out there will yield an experience to us based upon how we choose to live our lives. And so now, if you listen long enough into this message and you get to this point that just maybe our experience is based upon our belief system. And then if you get to that point, you begin to sort of see why their system out there, the mainstream media, operates the way that it does, and why it has to be on 24/7, 365, and why everything that we've been taught is a lie, and as often as possible, 180-degree upside down lie from what the truth is, because they must keep us from, as you said, ourselves, our true nature, from going outside, going outdoors, turning off the TV, not having any distractions, and just going out into your yard or going for a walk into the meadows and connecting with Mother Earth. Or God forbid that you should ever close your eyes and begin to meditate and go into that other aspect of our reality, which is our Heavenly Father, the intangible, unknowing Heavenly Father, and maybe connect with some higher truths from the unknowable, the untouchable. And that's why, as you say, their system is the way it is. It's a distraction, and it doesn't matter what it is. Right now, it's a lot of violence and stuff, and maybe back in the 70s there was more porn and less violence, and now there's more violence and less porn or whatever. As long as it's a distraction, they don't care.
Right.
They don't care. The truth of the matter is, the way this system works day after day after day and continues, where nothing seems like it's ever going to change, is because we, like you talked about in our pre-show, that we have simply handed over the keys to this incredible ride. That's ours. That's us as these unique individuals, these super fine machines that we have been created as, and we've handed the keys over to somebody else, and they are taking us on detour after detour after detour after detour. So your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are, along with the media and everything that they're doing, trying to pollute the minds of people to keep them from being who they really are as humans, Charlie, think about all the other stuff that they have to do also. So we just said that it's 24/7, 365 days a year. They have to keep going in order to keep us down. But think about, they've poisoned the foods with GMO, aspartame, fluoride, aerosol spraying in the skies. We can go on and on and on about everything else they've thrown into the pot. Now we have, the electromagnetic frequencies that they have. Everything, they have to work, again, not to sound like a broken record, but they have to work incredibly hard to be able to dismantle the human spirit. What's really disconcerting to me is, as you've just mentioned, and what I talked about earlier, is so many people have abdicated their responsibilities. They have just handed the keys to the car over to some driver that they don't know. And they're being driven down the wrong path, and they're just blindly trusting that where these people are taking them is going to be okay. It's going to be all right. But if you open your eyes and you just take a break, just pause for a moment, just take in what's going on around you in life. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. And so we have to come to the realization first that it's very broken. It's very, very broken. It's not, it doesn't follow a natural order. It doesn't follow a natural flow of anything. It's extremely dysfunctional. And once we get enough souls to have that awareness, then things will begin to change. They will begin to change because, as you mentioned earlier, people will then not be compliant. They will say, no, I'm not doing that. Or we want you to do this. I'm not doing that.
And it is that simple.
It really is that simple, but it's hard to get people to go there because the indoctrination is so deep. People have been born and bred into this system. That's the issue. And so that from the day you're born, you are told X, Y, and Z. This, all of us. I wasn't born enlightened. maybe I was enlightened when I was in the womb, but once you get out, I mean, and your parents are trying to do the very best they can, but they're also coming from a position of having been indoctrinated into the system.
Absolutely.
Right? So it keeps going. It's like a perpetual motion machine. And it's always interesting to me how some people are able to break out and see it for what it is. And then others do not see anything. They just do not see it. You know, I can't tell you how many times, well, I don't do it anymore. I had a discussion with Matt McKinley, who has his new channel now is Quantum of Conscious, and it used to be Texas Shrugged. And we talked about this with family and friends, trying to have conversations with family and friends in a way where you're like, hey, I have this new information. I think you guys are going to be very interested. And they're like, you're crazy. You're a lunatic. Don't talk about that. I remember, just a quick story here. About a year ago, we had a family get together, and the topic of vaccines came up. Okay. And I kept quiet for a while, and then I listened and I listened and I listened. And finally, you know, I chimed in a little bit, and I wasn't trying to be pushy or, you know, I wasn't trying to poke at anybody. But it didn't matter, Charlie. They got extremely upset with me. Extremely upset. It almost turned into a ballroom brawl. And that's the problem that we have, is that we have to get people we have to make inroads to break that down, because people who react that way, what they're actually doing is they are defending the system. That's how wicked the system is. It's brilliant in a very wicked way. It has the people themselves defending their oppressors. That's how crazy the whole thing is.
And this is also why again, I think is absolute proof that what I'm saying, that the end game is here right now. This is it. Don't look for things to get any worse. They're going to continue to string us along for sure. But the end game is now, because when you are your own jailer and when you are your own handler, that's a hell of a system that they've created. And are you aware of the brilliant Australian comedian Steve Hughes?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Steve is just dynamite. And Steve did a wonderful segment speaking to everything that you were talking about, and you know, this whole sort of reality where we are essentially doing all of the work for them. In other words, in the past there was you know, slavery, and everyone was aware of it. It was an overt thing, but what they've done now is that they've just cleverly continued slavery, but they just made it a covert thing. And of course, it can't happen to you. It can't happen here, as Frank said. And so what Steve talks about is the brilliance of this system of wage slave. And, you know, you purposely make the two key aspects to living in this humanized world, which is your house, your transportation. And you make sure that those two things are very, very expensive. Take good 25, 30, 40 years, you know, in the good old days, to be able to pay off. And it keeps you tied to that job for your whole life, so busy that you can't think about anything else. And then, like Steve said, you get to go home.
Right.
But I'll see you back on Monday morning, won't I? Yeah. 9 o'clock sharp. Monday morning, I'll see you back, right? And then you get this reality. We all know this, what I'm going to say. You know the feeling that you grow to hate Sundays. You can't stand Sunday past, say, 2 in the afternoon, because Monday is sticking its bloody elbow into your ribcage. Hey, you can feel me, huh? Yeah, you can bloody feel me. That's the game, so that we don't even get 2 days off, 5 days on, 2 days off, 5 days on, 2 days off. Forget it. We are so absorbed with trying to come out of the insanity of 5 days that we go hell-bent Friday night, so that we're hungover Saturday morning,
We do all of our chores on Saturday so that we can have a great day Sunday. But at about 2 o'clock on Sunday, Monday's they're nudging in the bloody ribcage saying, yeah, you can feel me, huh? You can feel me. And that's our reality. So we get about a good 8-10 hours on the weekend to relax, and then it's right back to the slave pit. And that's our reality.
Right.
Our reality is that slavery hasn't gone anywhere. Slavery is here. But the brilliance of their system is that, of course, we're free. We're free. And how do you know that we're free? Well, because I'm free to root for the Texas Longhorns or maybe the North Carolina Tar Heels. And if we can recruit a little better this year up here in North Carolina, I think we got a good shot at, the ACC. I really do. I think we win. That's freedom. That's freedom. And so you've got, Baskin Robbins has 44 flavors of ice cream, and, Starbucks has 8 different cups of coffee every morning and about 12 different types of muffins. That's freedom.
Right.
But you better be back here tomorrow morning at 8:15 sharp, because if you're not, it's not going to be a nice little check in your slot there come next week. And I don't think you'll be able to deal with that little nugget, can you? So it is the appearance of freedom. Again, the election cycle. This is why, and you talked about this brilliantly for so long, why there always has to be the appearance of someone who's promising change. Obama, yes, we can. And of course, that was code for no, we won't. And, Obama wins, a black man in America wins that with a Muslim name. And the only way that happens is because he's running against a supposed Vietnam War veteran, had cancer 3 times, and his vice president made her bones by keeping the Western world safe by watching boats from the shoreline of Alaska. It is insanity to think that real democracy or real freedom exists anywhere outside of Baskin Robbins. And of course, the moment that you realize that you have to pay $5 for 1 scoop or $6.25 for 2 scoops of Baskin Robbins, there is no democracy, free choice, or freedom. And like Bill Hicks said so brilliantly, you think you live in a free reality, a free world. Try traveling somewhere, anywhere you want to go without money, and see how far you go or how far you get without any money in your pockets. That's how much freedom we have. And it all comes back, as you were talking about, that through the discussion at the family dinner table about vaccinations, right? It's the hubris of Mike to question these corporations when God creates all of us in utter perfection, and we have these incredible systems that science can't even begin to touch and explain in any kind of accurate detail in terms of how all of our natural immune and defense systems work perfectly naturally, right? The temperature. He's got a temperature. My child has a temperature. I'm a bad parent. My child has a temperature. Oh, that's how we kill infections. I didn't know. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Okay, I'm maybe not such a bad parent. It's incredible, this reality. So you humbly suggest at the dinner table that, maybe, just maybe, injecting kerosene into, your little baby versus then trusting in our natural system, our natural process. And you're the one who's being accused of hubris, and you're the one who's the kook and the nut. This is the upside down reality that we live. And that can only exist if we are deep in the end game, deep inside the end game. And it leads us to another point. You talked about it earlier. I brought it up earlier. And it's just something that is important to just make a note of here for everyone. They can't do all the things that Mike is telling you, all of the complexities of all of the systems and all these different areas. They can't do this if it was their gold. This is why we have paper money. This is why we have interest on paper money. And this is why we have an invisible, silent, shadowy, hidden group printing the money behind the scenes that is beyond auditing. And again, this is such an important point. And during the whole global economic collapse of 2007 and 2008, all of this came to a head when various senators and congressmen were asking, the head of the Fed at the time to give them some details in terms of who's making the decisions and how much money was actually printed to prop up the economy, and to which foreign countries was this money that the American taxpayers were being put on the hook for, which countries and how much was going there. And was it Bernanke at the time? I think it was Bernanke at the time that was saying this. I don't have to tell you any of this. And that's it. There's nothing else out there that you need to watch and see. There's no other documentary that you need to watch and see. There's your reality. When a hidden group is able to print our monopoly money into existence without being audited, here's the basic question that everyone intuitively should be asking. What prevents them from ever turning those fucking machines off? And the answer is nothing. And you wonder why they have so many underground facilities and what's in there? Aliens, green aliens, and it's all this alien technology. No, it's green, all right. It's money. And so when you have someone who comes along like Obama and you say, listen, Barack, we've just shown you the actual film of JFK getting whacked, not that, Zapruder nonsense that we showed the public, the people. Ha! We showed you the real one. And so we now know you're going to play ball with us. We just need you to sign on the dotted line here. And Obama says, guys, listen, okay, I'm with you, but I'm not going to sell out humanity for anything less than $20 billion. I'm sorry, I'm just not going to do it for $20 billion. And of course, all the guys in their chairs, they quickly turn and look at each other and they have a big snicker because it's monopoly money. And right. Doc, okay, listen, you're a great negotiator and we're going to cave in. You got us. We're going to cave in and we're going to give you the 20 billion. Can you give us about 5-6 days to get it together for? Yes. Yeah. Not a problem. I want it in this account, that account. And then they snicker because it's monopoly money. It's not real. The core of this entire system, and that of course starts with the mainstream media, is an illusion. When corporations own the information, then who knows what shit will be peddled for truth on this godforsaken box, right? The movie network. I mean, it is so fundamental. The truth of this upside down reality is in plain sight everywhere we turn. And thus, what I'm saying is that the answers are in plain sight as well. And like you said, they are going 24/7. They have dug themselves this massive, massive trench and hole for themselves to have to control. And so what's left? Our compliance. If we stop complying, how do they continue with any of this without us to do all of the work for them? Right? Well,
exactly.
Well, okay, you got us. Hey, wait a minute, you got us. I'm going to give you $22 million to sweep the floors in the Pentagon, right? No, I'll do it for 25 million. Again, none of this has any value unless we confer a value on this worthless paper money. And think about this, Mike, the game Monopoly. How is it any different from this economic system that they call capitalism?
It's not. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. And, Charlie, going back to this whole thing where people think that they're free, I have these examples that I put out there for folks. Think about the fact that you were talking about, hey, Sunday comes and you're starting to feel that heaviness because you've got to go to work on Monday, right? It's already weighing on you. They're taking 40 cents out of every dollar out of your pocket that you went to work, you earned the money, whether it's fiat money or not. They're taking 30 to 40% of it.
Incredible.
They levy in all 50 states property taxes, which is a perpetual lien against your land, which means you never own your land. You're a tenant.
That's right.
I've had this discussion with folks. I said, look, they'll say, hey, I paid my house off. That's terrific. Okay. But you still have to pay property taxes. And if you don't pay the property taxes, what's going to happen is not only are they going to take the land, they're going to take your house that you think you own. So we actually still reside. We're still in the feudal system.
Yes.
This is what people don't really get. And one of the things I wanted to say to the audience, and I really would like you to think about this. Too many people are just caught up with surviving. And I understand why. I understand it's because of everything we've just talked about. You're being deluged with just all of this crap all the time, 24/7. But take a step back and think to yourself, what are you going to do when you reach a certain point, a certain age, where you really can't work anymore? What are you going to do? Here in the United States, there are no more pensions. That stuff's gone.
The good old days.
Right? The good old days, right? So many people are not thinking in those terms, Charlie. So they're going to rely on what? Social Security and some level of money in 401ks, maybe. And folks, you need to do the math. And
Yes.
current course and speed, if we keep going down this path, and it looks like we're going to keep going down this path, a huge portion of the population is going to be destitute.
Yeah.
Okay? And when I have this conversation with folks, a lot of them just shut down, Charlie, because if they go there, the reality of what I'm talking about and what I'm trying to explain to them hits home, and it's like, you know what? I'll worry about that in 10 years. No,
Yeah.
you need to start worrying about that and working on that now, because 10 years from now, it's going to be 10 years later, and it's going to be too late.
Yeah, which only furthers what I'm saying about the end game being here now. That is the end game where you dispose of the moment, which is the only thing that can possibly exist is the moment. There's no, linear time is a complete man-made construct, a lie, an illusion because of the second, right? So
Right.
Just that whole notion that I'm going to be happy in 3 seconds, 2, 1, God, it's gone. Wow. You know what? Damn it, I worked so hard all day. I was so focused. I'm gonna try that again. Hold on. Okay, 3, 2, 1. It's gone again. Every time I try and get happy, it just suddenly disappears on me.
Right.
Linear time. Who does that benefit? Linear time. Who does that benefit? Or an eternal moment, and who does that benefit? It's incredible. And what you're discussing is, which we talked about at the beginning, and it's a great time to get back into it, is cognitive dissonance. And this is where, unless people like yourself and perhaps myself, unless we begin to talk very holistically about all of this heavy subject matter and all of these topics, unless we start to holistically explain this out with all of the consequences in the moment for everyone, then we're all headed there. We're all headed to that point where it's just so overwhelming. I don't even care anymore. I really don't even care. And this really, really, really leads us to where ultimately I wanted to go with the show tonight, which is so we're talking about all these illusions. We're talking everything is a lie. Okay, great. Thanks so much, Charlie, for just ruining my evening, that everything I've been taught is a lie. Thanks, Mike Williams, again for making me feel all shitty. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
What then is the truth? And the truth is so freaking obvious, it's unbelievable. Everything in our reality, puppet, slave, ascended master, bodhisattva, it doesn't matter. Everything in our reality is duality. Everything is a duality. Father, mother, up, down, right, left. on, off, men, women.
Right.
Every single thing is a duality. Here, it's not enough to just say that. What does that mean? What does that mean? What does a duality mean? It means that there is no beginning and there is no end. So if we're talking about, I think, the most essential core level of all the dualities, which is light and darkness, if we're talking about light versus darkness, where does light begin? Where does it end? Where does darkness begin and where does it end? The fact of the matter is you'll chase your tail forever because you'll never find it. Because there is no beginning and there is no end. And guess what? Light and dark are connected to one another. And that means darkness and everything that's associated with darkness is created by God. And it has to be. We cannot appreciate the light unless there was darkness. And it's the same thing for human propensity in the moment to be able to do things that are dark in nature, let's say evil in nature. Because if we didn't have the propensity to be able to strike out and do something like that, how would we know what love is?
Right.
How would we know what light is if it was just light all the time? If there was
no reference point.
You wouldn't. And if there was only the sun, then you wouldn't have a name for the sun. It just is. If it was always blue sky and clear, you wouldn't call it daytime. It just is. So the reason for the moon is to appreciate the sun. The reason for the sun is to appreciate the moon. The reason for the man is to appreciate the woman. The reason for the woman is to appreciate the man. Everything in our reality is a duality. Okay, part one, let's just put a check mark. Did it. Part two. Against this backdrop of duality is our free will. And there are people in the truth community who literally do shows trying to refute or say that free will is some kind of illusion. It doesn't really exist. It, of course, exists because inside of these ridiculous noggins that we all possess, anything is possible. I can do anything in any corresponding moment. I don't do a lot of things because I've been conditioned to act and think and feel and respond in a certain way. I am what's called a passive learner. I sit and I'm told and I follow and I get rewards. I get a nice little treat every time I listen to mom and dad. And my teacher's kind of like that too. It's funny. It's a coincidence. I know there's nothing sinister here. It's just a coincidence. But it's kind of funny how there's always these coincidences. And I found that at my job too. If I just sat passively and complied, I got a lot of little treats. Mom and dad, my teachers, my job. Wow. My whole life I've been just coincidences. There's no conspiracy. That's insane. But just out of coincidence, my whole life, I've been conditioned to just sit back and do what other people tell me to do. And so then we have this Mandela effect, like the Mandela effect exists, like in CERN with the Hadron Collider, that they're doing something evil and dangerous and they're manipulating the space-time. There is no space-time continuum. There's the moment. Deal with that. The Hadron Collider they're blasting molecules, these subatomic particles that we can't see. And we can't see because they don't exist. Electrons. You know, you go into these microscopic subatomic particles, and you know the nucleus is made up of the neutron and the proton, and they get all of their source of electricity from this swirling mass cloud of electrons. And we know this. How do we know this? Well, I don't know. Somebody told me. Okay, well, how do they know it? I don't know, because somebody told them. Well, show me a picture of the swirling mass of these electrons, subatomic particles. I can't. Why? Because we can't see them, but they're there, right? Everything's there. Trust us. Everything's there. Trust us. This whole reality that we have is being led down one lie, which leads to another lie, and we accept it all because we've been taught to become passive learners. That's why in schools, we don't all stand up, or the teacher doesn't sit down on the grass next to us. We're not all sitting together. We're not equals. The teacher stands while we sit, because they're sending you a powerful, philosophical, root, core level message. I am the truth. You are a peon. Shut up and listen, and I'll give you a treat at the end of the episode. How different is that from being at home with mom and dad? How different is that being at your job?
No, well, they have to have that authority variable, Charlie, where it's the obedience. You must obey. You must obey. And if you obey, if you're a good obeyer, like you said, we will reward you. And this thing with free will. Yeah, I've heard people say we don't really have free will. And one of the issues I have with a lot of folks that are in the truth community or the alternative research community is that they do not focus on the spiritual aspects at all. They never focus on it. And so I have been trying to explain on some of the shows that I've done. I don't talk about it on every show, but I've had shows where I have discussed it. If you do not understand the spiritual aspect, the metaphysical meanings, then you're only going to run that football 50 yards. That's it. Because you think the field is only 50 yards long.
Right.
Not understanding and realizing that there's another 50 yards and it has nothing to do with the physical realm. Nothing to do with that. That the other 50 yards has to do with being connected back to spirit. So you try to have this conversation, and of course, people who get it, and there's a lot of people that do get it. But if this is something that doesn't resonate with some people because they're still mired down, they're still in the mud, in the weeds, trying to figure out the little nuances of this particular event or that particular event, or 9/11, was it nukes, was it energy weapons, was it whatever,
Exactly.
Right? They just keep spiraling and spinning around in that stuff. And what happens is you never pick your head up to see the bigger picture.
Right.
And you are down in the weeds, focus on something that I'm going to, say that in all likelihood will never be figured out.
Exactly.
Designed not to be figured out.
JFK. Again, the Zapruder
50
film.
years.
And it'll be 5 million years, and we'll never figure it out. And who cares who killed the guy? Who cares? Who were the culprits? I mean, that is hit you over the head with Captain Obvious. It's so obvious. Everybody who had a vested position in capitalism must have hated the guy, right? Because that's what you're talking about with the Amazon rainforest. If it means that our infinite growth paradigm must continue at all costs, then we got to steamroll the Amazon. And it doesn't matter what's there. Who cares?
They don't care.
It's good for the business. It's good for the economy. It's good. JFK is bad for business. And I can give you 1,000 reasons and 1,000 different groups that he pissed off. And again, think about this. If people are saying that JFK is a shill or whatever, again, we get caught up in all these distractions. The guy was only in office for 2 years and about 10 months. That's it. In 2 years and 10 months, he managed to piss off virtually every single significant money person in the entire world. And who was there in Dealey Plaza that day? The one thing I think that most people can agree upon, virtually everybody. Virtually everybody had their pocket knives and were ready to throw it at the guy. He had zero chances of escaping Dealey Plaza. And if he did, they had people on roofs just down the road.
Right.
They had people at the trade center, at the Trade Mart. They had people at the, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And what they do by distracting us on, 9/11, and again, all of these things, there's, like people say, the mistake about Building 7. Building 7 is a huge mistake. There must have been another plane that was going to hit. The plane never materialized. It didn't make it there. No, these things are 100 years in the planning. They have infinite amount of monopoly money to make these things happen. There's no mistakes. There are no accidents in this. Building 7 dropped so that people like you and me, with a little bit of savvy and a little bit of an awakened reality, can spend the rest of our lives forgetting about opting out, non-complying, and bringing down the system, and devour our minds with Building 7,
Right.
Building 7. Or, you know, the last of the trade towers, as it was about to hit the ground, it vaporized. I saw it vaporized. So then there's nukes, or it's a Tesla, it's a Tesla coil weapon. It's, you know, or this goes to CERN. Maybe that's why they created CERN, and the Hadron Collider was behind this. Jesus. All of this insanity has to stop, and we just have to, like you said earlier, just stop. Hug your kids. Kiss your wife like you've never, ever, ever kissed her before. Go outside and look up at the stars in the sky and be amazed how they're the same every year as they do this procession through the skies every 12 months and every 26,000 years. And how did the ancients living to 60 or 70 years of age know that there was a great 26,000 year? Because they didn't have TV, because they didn't have Time magazine. They were busy building the pyramids. They were busy creating resonators, pushing out vibrational waves of electromagnetic energy so that everyone was in a constant state of healing.
Right.
Didn't need to eat food. What did they eat back then? Who knows? Maybe they just breathed in the air. Maybe they just drank water, right? I mean, Dr. Bruce Lipton removed living cells out of the body, put them into petri dishes, and those cells did everything. They breathed in, they respired out, they consumed, and they excreted. They did everything except reproduce without the RNA and the DNA. Cells exist on something, and it isn't food, right? We have to eat, or we're going to die unless we eat. We need this great diet and stuff. I mean, I eat because food is amazing. We, in Mexico here, we're surrounded. It's almost mango season, and you just don't know what that means until you live around mango trees. It is 2 months of magic. These things are like fresh off the tree. Yeah. You think an apple is amazing, right? Like a fresh apple off the tree is just amazing. These mangoes are just, they make apples pale in comparison. I eat because it's delicious. I love to do it. I'm in this three-dimensional sensory form, so why not have fun with it? But maybe we don't need to, because cells can do everything that they need to do outside of the body, not being fed by, cotton candy or an organic orange. What we've been told is a lie, and what truth we know, we virtually know nothing of the truth. And so our system virtually just comes down to beliefs, and this takes us back into free will against the backdrop of duality. So how can any two people be alike? How can even two identical twins be alike when everything is nothing but a infinite line with no beginning and no end of duality? And against every one of these lines that present itself in our reality, we possess free will. It means, of course, that God gave us, where does real freedom exist? With us, with the simple basic operation of living, right? To live. And if we're not living, if we don't live, what's the opposite of live? If you take the word live, just spell it backwards, it's evil. Yeah. To not live is evil. To not live is evil. All we have to do to figure out this ride and have a great life and be happy is to live. And what is living? Applying this free will against this infinite backdrop of these lines of duality, on, off, man, woman, light, dark, happy, sad. Everything is duality. And it means that no two people and no two things can act or even look alike. So why is it? This is the number one reason, if you're ever going to try to convert someone that everything is a conspiracy, and it is, If everything is a conspiracy, this is the simplest, easiest way to convince someone that everything is a lie and a conspiracy. Why does everything look alike? Why do we all live in houses that are geometric shapes? Why are they squares and rectangles? Why do we all wear the same clothes? Why do we all have a similar favorite color? Why do we all dress the same way? Why do we all kind of have our hair the same way? Why do most women all kind of use the same products and sort of all do themselves up the same way? It's insanity when everything is a duality and we possess free will. There cannot be any copying. There cannot be any unified pattern against God's creation. God's creation is duality, free will. It means we're individuals, we're all different, and everything looks like chaos out there. That's how we're meant to live. Against the backdrop of we all have a favorite football team. We all eat meat. So we live in a reality where we don't even know if we need to consume nutrients to survive, because you can take cells out of the body and they live forever. They can just live in a petri dish. They just can't replicate themselves without food coming to them. And yet we people think that we have to murder living beings to be able to sustain our bodies, or we're going to die. And that if we don't do this, that if we say to our children that, you know what, I don't know how I feel about eating these animals and we shouldn't do it, and your child gets sick and he goes to school and he tells his teacher that, well, at home we don't eat meat, and that teacher finds out, you'll find how quickly who really owns your child and how much authority you have over your own child, right? Coercion. You better feed your children meat, because God forbid they tell someone at school that they're sickly and pale because, you know, they're not getting their daily beef intake. Upside down, complete opposite of the truth. And again, like you said, that's 50 yards of the football field.
Right.
The other 50 yards is that there's a living being, and you're telling me that cows are okay with this? Seriously, they're bred for this. Don't think about it. Don't make a big fuss about it. Believe me, they don't have much of a life anyways. They're happy when this occurs, and believe me, 100% of the time we kill them humanely. Wow, what a load of bullshit. Absolute grade A, #1 bullshit.
I ask people, would you kill your pet? Would you eat your pet? Oh no, my pet's very special. My pet is a sentient being. Exactly. So I mean, I don't eat meat, Charlie, and I've tried to, and I do it in a very diplomatic way, because it's another one of those topics,
Yep.
you know, that will send people off spiraling.
Yep.
And I try to recommend that they watch some of the documentaries that are out there about meat and how we get our meat and how it winds up in your supermarket and on your table, your kitchen table, and so on. But, you know, these animals are sentient creatures, and they didn't come here so that they could wind up in a 1 by 1 foot box being trucked down Route 40 to the slaughterhouse. You know, and folks, you got to get your head wrapped around that. I've heard people say to me, well, you know, otherwise you can't get certain nutrients. Bullshit.
Just a modicum of research. I mean, a modicum of research, and you'll find out the myth about eating animal protein. And in fact, once you get outside of the conscripted nonsense that is fed through these fascist regimes, government and corporations working together to hide the truth, and you get into some real actual science, some doctors who are really actually doing some actual science, and they'll tell you the exact same thing. When you feed, and it's not just, it isn't just human beings, it's actually your pets as well. When you subject them and us to animal protein, the best we can do is survive. Forget about thriving, because our systems are not designed to deal with animal protein. And again, it's so obvious. The only way it's not obvious, cognitive dissonance, and that is a passive learner, someone who sits down, lets the teacher stand in front of them, and passively accepts whatever is being told to them. And life goes on because it's a big, bad, ugly world out there.
Yeah. And what do you think about some of the folks out there that say that Earth is a trap? It's a soul trap. In other words, they even have control of your soul. It's basically what they're saying, that you have to keep coming back and reincarnating because not only do they control your physical vehicle, your body, but they actually control your soul too, Charlie. And that's something to me that is a very, very dangerous message for people in the truth community and the alternative research community to be propagating, because it's the furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah, and thank you very much for bringing that up, Mike. And again, for those of you who maybe haven't seen Mike's last few shows, I highly encourage you to watch them, because Mike has been introducing a lot of these topics and concepts over these shows. Very well done, and they're so important. And it's once again proving that we are in the end game. And it also proves this other aspect that it's my last point that I wanted to make sure we got to in the show today. And I think it'll answer what you're asking as well. And that is this. It also proves that they know the truth. What I'm saying is that everything is a lie. What is the truth? What is the truth is just in your plain sight. It's just in front of you. It is our Heavenly Father, who is unknowable by looking out there. There's no way I can reach up into the heavens and even begin to know what the moon is, the sun is, what the stars are. I cannot touch God. I can't, my hand is only a meter long. I can't get there. Mother Earth is three-dimensional, is physical, is here. I exist on Mother Earth. I have a profound relationship with Mother Earth, and that's the rigged football game. That's the 50-yard line. That's what people get caught into all the time, and they know this. So what is the truth? If everything that you're being taught is a lie, would you like to hear some truth? The truth is that we are these amazing creations that exist simultaneously in two worlds. Why do you think we have a third eye? Right? Just, again, some little, mistake of science, this little, evolutionary glitch or something like that. The third eye allows us to be able to go past our 1 meter arms and go flying. And if you think that you can only do that by taking a psilocybin mushroom, or to go deep into the jungles and have what's the concoction that they make?
Ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca from the tree bark, or LSD, poppy seeds, just whatever. I'm not here. I think these things are distractions, and I think everything is to be tried. And it's once you take that experience, the phone rings and someone answers, and you see this incredible reality. Hang it up. You don't need to keep dialing that number again and again and again, because it becomes a crutch. But that third eye exists so that in any moment that we calm ourselves, that we evacuate the white noise from us, that we retreat deep within the silence that exists within us, and suddenly in that silence, you know everything, and you are at one with God, your creator, and you are connected in that moment. And anything is possible and anything is knowable in that moment. But if what I just said is ridiculous and mumbo jumbo, then you're playing on a 50-yard football field. And I'll tell you something else about that field. It's tilted. Game's rigged. The table is tilted, folks. Nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to notice. good, honest, hardworking people, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color. These are good, honest people. And we're all falling hook, line, and sinker for that. There's only one reality, a big, random, hurling through an ever-expanding universe that, contradicts the second or third law of thermodynamics, and at uncontrollable speeds, and that it exists, it's always existed, and it will always exist, and we're just a momentary fluke. And stop thinking. We figured it all out. The Truman Show. When I grow up, I'd like to be an explorer. Oh, Truman, sorry to show you, but everything's already been discovered. You just need to stay here in your little town like the good huddled mass that you are. 5 on, 2 off. 5 on, 2 off. And that's why you need 11 pairs of shoes. That's why you need 13 pairs of jeans. That's why you need Perrier sparkling water instead of just water from the tap. You need all of these things to help you process the zero self-worth that these poor people must feel by buying into this ugly, impersonal system of a hurtling universe out there. And that's all that exists. And like I said, just maybe this earth only comes into reality when we wake up, when we turn our senses on, when we plug in to the system. And I know you've had people on your show that are talking about that this is a malevolent system, that we're plugging into a hologram, that we're plugging into some reality that's been hijacked by these evil people. Free will and duality, man. In every single moment, no one can hijack you and your thoughts unless you allow them to. And that goes back to your analogy at the beginning of handing the keys over to this superfine ride that we've been gifted to somebody who's just, heading.
You don't know who they are, but you trust them.
That's right. That's right. And so, again, to just drive that last point home, that what is the truth? What is our reality? Again, it is, we were talking in pre-show about flat Earth and about the trick to understanding flat Earth is understanding how your eyesight works and how everything in our vision runs to a vanishing point. And it's not just that the sides go in. It's not just that the top comes down and the bottom comes up. It isn't just that. The vanishing point is always at eye level. So here you have this situation, people denying flat Earth, denying it all the time. And I'm on an airplane, and I look through this rounded window, this curved and rounded window, tiny little curved and rounded window on this airplane at 25,000 feet. And I think I see it. It's not obvious, but yeah, I think I see a curvature there. First question to ask them, where did you see this curvature? Like, where was it located? Was it like way down there? Or where was it? No, it was at my eye level. If you just want to have a lesson 101 on explaining flat Earth and how to prove flat Earth to anyone, explain for the first time probably in their lives how our vision actually works. Everything runs to eye level. So if the Earth was actually a spherical object that constantly ran away and down from us, it means that if you were up 25,000 feet in an airplane looking through a tiny window, you probably wouldn't see the Earth because you'd have to really get up high and crane your neck way down to look past the fuselage and the wing to see any hint of the Earth, because it's constantly curving down and away, down and away, down and away. It's like that good slider. It's just constantly down and away out of the strike zone. Looks like it's going to be a strike, and it's a ball, and I swung at it anyway. Understand how your senses work, and there's the truth of your reality. Understand for the first time how your senses work, and that is the truth of the true nature of our reality. So, is the Earth flat or is it curved? Jesus, climb up a hill go to a mountaintop, or it's just the next time you go on an airplane, just tell me where you think you see this curvature. If it's at your eye level, the earth is flat. What you're looking at is probably scotoma. You're seeing what you feel like you need to see in that moment based on your belief system, what you've been taught and told. If there was curvature, it would be way, way down there. And again, Rob Skiba did that one experiment where he took Joshua Nowicki's point of clicking the photograph from across Lake Michigan. I think it was from Milwaukee to Chicago skyline. He gets this unbelievably clear, perfect picture of the Chicago skyline. It's what did they call it? A mirage. Because if it was a mirage on a curved surface, it would actually refract back upside down. But no, this is right side up and stuff. So Rob does this little science experiment. He gets to the point generally where Joshua was, approximately 60 miles away. He takes his camera, which is a video camera, and he puts it on a tripod. He gets the image of the Chicago skyline in the sight line of the camera, and then they hire a boat. They take off across Lake Michigan, and if it's a mirage, it'll disappear. If it stays in focus the entire time as that pristine image the entire time, then it's real. And if it's real, you got a lot of explaining to do, Lucy, because 60 miles of curvature, right? Every mile squared times 8. Right. That is an enormous 2,000 feet of curvature. And Rob does this basic experiment, and there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go. Either this Earth is mammoth and the curvature is just so slight because the Earth is not 25,000 miles round at the equator. It's 250 billion miles wide round at the equator. Either they're lying about that, or the Earth is flat and there's no curvature. No one can prove curvature. So the truth of everything is in our senses. Once you take the time to educate yourself on how each of your senses work, the truth will present itself. That's what I'm going to do in this 10-part series. The reason it's a 10-part series is I go through each of the senses and I explain how your senses work, and therefore what it is that you're actually seeing, feeling, tasting, touching, hearing. It's incredible. What if you ask 100 people to explain, every single one of those 100 people will get all 5 of their senses wrong in terms of how their senses actually work. And again, with eyesight, there is a red Volkswagen out there. I can see it. I can see it because there's a red Volkswagen out there, and there's the light on it. The light reflects off of the red Volkswagen. It comes in through my lens, just like a camera lens. It goes in through my lens. It goes to the back of my eye, and then it's inverted. It gets converted into zeros and ones. It goes through the optic nerve, through the center of the brain, to the visual cortex at the back of the brain on the opposite side. And there it is, upside down. It's an upside down image at the back of our brain that just conveniently got transmuted from a solid red Volkswagen into electrical data, zeros and ones, as it went through the optic nerve. And then what part of our eyes are then in real time making it three-dimensional, right side up? And remember, our left eye sees way, way over here. Our right eye sees way, way over there. But when we look with both eyes open at the same time, we get this in real time, this synthesized vision of a collective of both eyes. We're not seeing way, way, way out here unless we close our right eye, and then, oh yeah, I become aware that my left eye can see way over there. Yep, same is true for the right eye. You're trying to tell me that this is some kind of random chance of evolution, that in real time we are taking what appear to be solid objects and we're changing them into electrical data, potentially zeros and ones, and then in real time the visual cortex is making these images three-dimensional, a synthesized, homogenized viewpoint of both of our eyes, right side up. And who's making all these decisions? It's not the eyes. The eyes don't have the capacity to say, yeah, take a little left, take a little right, take this much right, take that much left, or whatever. There's so much information that comes in through our eyes that's not used with the finished product. Who's making that decision? The brain.
Right.
What does the brain run on? Whatever we tell it to, whatever we believe in, whatever we've been taught. Who controls our senses? Whoever controls the educational system.
That's right.
Whoever prints the money controls our economic reality. Whoever controls the educational system controls our reality, because we do whatever we're told to do.
And that's the code we have to break, Charlie. That's the code we have to get people to move away from, to understand that that's what's going on. You know, you mentioned the Truman Show before, and everybody should watch the Truman Show because they're telling you about you. They're telling you about your life.
Yeah.
Right? And people don't even realize that.
Yeah. And a lot of people with the Truman Show have been really seeing in the last few years as a flat earth thing, the dome and all of that. And believe me, there absolutely is that aspect to it.
Yes.
But the bigger aspect to the Truman Show, just trust me on this one, and the next time you watch it from this perspective, that this is the huddled masses in the cities, trapped as victims of evolution, trapped as victims of a school system that tells you that you're nothing more than just random chance. And the dinosaurs had their go, and there are no dinosaurs. There never were any dinosaurs. There never will be any dinosaurs. There's no such thing as a dinosaur. There's the beautiful, amazing, incredible human beings. And we've handed over the keys to this incredible ride, and that's what they're telling us. And that's what the Truman Show is about. I want to be an explorer. I'd like to go to Fiji. Sorry, it's all been figured out. It's all been discovered. And how, Mike, is scientism any different? How are Bill Nye, who's not even a scientist,
Nope.
makes perfect sense, and Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I don't believe is an astrophysicist, he's just an actor, and
He's an actor.
Good one at that. Same with Einstein.
Mm-hmm.
Einstein comes out with special relativity. Oops, forgot motion. Oh, I'm the smartest guy in the history of the world. I just tore Tesla a new one. I just got rid of the ether, the thing that we believed in forever. Forever we believed in the electromagnetic ether. I just destroyed flat earth. We've all ancient cultures, whether they be religious based or family cultural based, whatever, politically based, all believed in flat earth. I just destroyed all of them, but I forgot motion. That everything kind of just happens through motion. That's okay, because there's a thing called general relativity. I remembered motion this time. And then through the rest of his life, I'd like to talk to you about special relativity and general relativity. I don't feel like talking about it. I got a headache. You see this hair? This hair is not easy to have. And I got a bit of a headache going on here. So just read my books. You just go and look at that chalkboard that I left up there at Oxford for you, and you can just go over those formulas, those equations. I don't feel like talking about it, right? Kind of sound like Neil deGrasse Tyson, the author of this book, that book. Tell me anything about astrophysics, Neil. Well, the Earth is, it's an oblate spheroid. It's an oblate sphere, but it's actually a little chubbier south of the equator, like me. Just like me, and just hold on. I'm just going to lick my fingers on national TV again because I'm eating some good chicken wings provided by the meat and dairy industry. Just hold on here. Let me finish. And and so I'm going to tell you about nothing because he knows nothing. It's pear-shaped, and NASA's giving back all these images of these, these perfect, but it's an oblate spheroid, kind of pudgy, just like Neil, and a little fatter south of the equator, just like Neil. And but we don't see that from NASA. I mean, it's just insanity. And again, where to turn to? I'm not. I didn't write all these books, and I'm not producing this wave of content to become anybody. And I know you're like this as well. I'm not here to be anybody's answer to anything. I am a human being, and I have my own issues that I have to work with and deal with every single day. I do not hold the wisdom for you or anyone else. I am, as humbly as I can through all of this mask of anger, am imploring you to consider that if you want to find some truth, and there's truth everywhere, it's encoded everywhere in nature, just like the number 666. It is not evil in any way, shape, or form. It is a beautiful number. It says so in the Bible itself. You can take the Bible for whatever you think it's worth. But 666 is the number of man. 666, by the way, is the number of Christ. It is a beautiful, unique, special number, which is what man is. Beautiful, special, and unique, not some random chance. And all you need to do is trust in you. All you need to do is trust in your senses. And all you need to do is get out of your square-shaped, rectangle-shaped homes, turn off those God-forsaken televisions and radios, and except if Mike's song is playing, and then listen to that then outside, and then, but after that. And then just let Mother Nature speak to you. Do you know that she's real? Do you know that Mother Nature, like, she actually has a pulse? You can actually measure the vibrational frequency of the earth. She's real. All of this is real. And like Mike has shared with you, and I'm trying to share with you as a student of meditation, spending many decades in deep meditation. If you go within that untouchable, unknowable, unreachable Heavenly Father presents himself to you. I guarantee it. This is just, and you've got nothing to lose. With everything that Mike and I are sharing with you tonight, you have nothing to lose. Trust in yourself. And if you do so, maybe, just maybe, you'll start putting some trust back into God. And maybe you'll start believing that there is a sacred feminine, that there is a Mother Earth. And maybe you'll begin to see that your life is a 100-yard football field, 50 yards three-dimensional physical, and 50 yards of intangible consciousness, pure consciousness. But if you think what I'm saying is some kind of game, some kind of distraction, or is just mumbo jumbo, you've been defeated before you even started. So, like Mike is saying, the first thing we need to do, and I humbly submit this to you, is to clear your mind of the white noise that is polluting it. These facts, figures, and logic. The facts, figures, and logic of scientism versus the lore, legend, and magic of our reality. That's why those wives' tales have stood the test of hundreds, perhaps thousands of years, because they're the truth. Lore, legend, and magic is real. Facts, figures, and logic is propaganda. It can be twisted and turned however anybody wants it to be twisted and turned. And that's kind of the choice that we have. You can accept this world as our only reality, and it's big and it's ugly, filled with terrorists and all of these horrible attacks, or you can say, I exist. And this world will be what I need it to be based on my thoughts, based on my beliefs, based on my actions. And again, I go back to duality and free will. If everything is duality, infinite lines of possibilities, and you possess free will in the moment, this ride cannot look the way it's looking. It's impossible. Everything, no matter where we go these days, all looks the same. It sounds the same. These are vast impossibilities. They're statistical anomalies. They cannot exist. And yet, it's our reality. I'll let you jump in.
Oh, I was just going to say it's our reality because we have allowed it to be our reality. We've abdicated, as I mentioned earlier in the show, Charlie, our responsibility as a human, and we just, like I said, handed the keys over to an unknown driver, and we put our trust in them, and not knowing at all where they're really taking us, and that's a big, big mistake. Big mistake, and we need to take those keys back and drive and steer our own ship. So, I mean, I have really an enjoyable discussion with you, and, it's been very good.
Thank you very much, Mike. It's just something that I've been thinking about having this discussion with you for quite a long time now. And I've just been so excited to see you headed in this direction as well. And again, you've done an amazing job of being non-judgmental and providing an amazing platform for so many people to come on and to share their take on things. And that is a form of democracy. That is a form of expression of free will. I think it's just things are so bad and the end game is so present and so real and so powerful that the time has come for someone or some group of people to stand up and do, and I'm going to just call this out because these are the examples that have worked. And you're looking at Mahatma Gandhi in India, and you're looking at Martin Luther King in the streets of and the jurisdictions of the South of America. Something as simple as the bus strike that segregated public buses for whites only in the South, and it all came crumbling down because Martin Luther King simply suggested to people that believed in his word to just maybe not support businesses locally, maybe not buy your lunch, and then having to walk home because a public bus won't take you anywhere. And so as soon as they did that, the local commerce businesses, the city commerce sections got together, came to the local government and said, you better allow these people on buses or our businesses are going out or going under in the next few days or weeks. And change, just like that. And Gandhi, this man, beautiful man, very diminutive in size, wearing just some authentic cloth fabric that was handmade, homemade, and just saying that you want to apply a tax on something as basic as salt, fine, we'll just go make it ourselves. And in the meantime, we're not going to show up to those jobs that you want us to show up to, and brought the British Empire to its knees. Now, of course, they got the last laugh because you create democracy with electable politicians,
right,
and you create loans with debt attached, and then you take over India that way. It's just a sad tragedy, but it doesn't change the fact that what Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King did worked. I'm just saying that, folks. It worked at a very small level with Martin Luther King, and on a massive level with Gandhi. It worked. And I humbly suggest to you, non-compliance with this system is the only way it's going to work. And I'll go back to this image that I shared with you earlier one last time. We're on our knees. And that's why a house of cards looks like it's made out of steel girders and beams. And they're not. They're paper. And the moment we get up off of our knees, and whether it's to fight or flight, to run away, or just to think somewhere, the cards come tumbling down. This system is based on lies and illusions. It's a falsehood. And if you stop complying with this system, it's going to collapse, and it'll collapse in short order. It's as simple as that. Mike, I'm going to just give you the last word here.
Well, you said it very well, Charlie. Non-compliance, and as long as you continue to play their game, they're going to be in control. So if you want to take control back, then you have to stop playing their game, and you have to, again, you have to do your inner work. You have to first do the work that you need to do to understand, really to understand who you are as a person, as a human. Understand your soul. This is a big piece. I mean, this was a big piece of my awakening, and I don't want to bring this up, at the end of the show here, but a big piece of my awakening was when I had that spiritual awakening. Because once I had that spiritual awakening, what happened was my eyes opened up. The aperture of the camera just opened up, and I was seeing things that I was not seeing before. And this is why when I said the football field, the 50 yards, and then the other 50 yards, they're two different things. Well, when I had the spiritual awakening, I saw the rest of the field. And I understood that, okay, the football field is 100 yards, it's not 50. So that's a very, very important piece of it. And of course, a lot of people will scoff at this, because they have been indoctrinated and conditioned to scoff at a creator or a source or God. And this is because of scientism, right? You're always looking for the God particle, and we can't say there's a God until we actually find him, So this is something that's innate within humans. If you go in, you will understand creation.
Yep.
And that will wake you up. It's a big piece of the awakening, if not the most important piece of the awakening.
Yeah, and when you awaken up that way, what you see, what we talked about, is the obvious truth staring you right in your face in Mother Nature. Everything in nature has been coded by God. God's sacred geometry, for example, the golden mean or pi, they're in everything. And maybe a really good way to just leave this episode, and another massive proof of the great conspiracy. Everything is a conspiracy. How about two men, Nikola Tesla and Antonio Gaudi? Antonio Gaudi in the 1800s was constructing mind-blowing architecture because he was creating massive expanses that did not require these geometrical girders or columns to hold up this massive domes, distances of weight. And the reason he was able to do it is because everything he constructed, first from an architectural standpoint and then through his applicability in engineering, was through the golden mean, that ratio, 1.618, and everything spirals out on this golden ratio. And you go anywhere in nature and you'll see that everything is built the same way. And guess what? You're not going to find that in a school textbook. Why? If it encodes every single architectural aspect of everything in nature and every single engineering aspect within nature, why isn't it the first thing? Why isn't Gaudi a household name? Why aren't we building incredible structures like Sagrada Familia in Barcelona based upon these brilliant ideas of nature? And Nikola Tesla, who actually did science. And I don't know how many people know this or not, but again, I think in 1912, Tesla had the New York school system ready to buy in to his program of bringing electrical energy to children, putting them in close proximity to electrical energy, live energy, because it stimulates the synapses within the brain and it gets all of the brain working at one time. And they're not going to do this because the New York school system wasn't going to do something as risky as this and put any kind of money into it unless they were confronted with experiment after experiment after experiment. That's science. That's what science is. And virtually
very few people know about Tesla, and those that do, they don't know the truth about Nikola Tesla. That's one of the scariest things. Like you were talking before about the fixing of the truth and the rewriting of history. Tesla is a huge one. And you mentioned Tesla and the ether, and you'll just get this whole wave of people that say, geez, I am a big fan of Tesla, but yeah, I don't think he ever mentioned ether. That's a conspiracy theory. No, that's what he talked about. That is what he wrote about. And you have to find his written words to be able to understand what Nikola Tesla. So I'll leave you with that. Nikola Tesla, Antonio Gaudi, the sacred father, our sacred feminine, Mother Nature, it's all there for us. Just open your eyes and stop being a passive receiver of information and start being an aggressive collector of knowledge. And that can only be done through science. And it's kind of funny how we don't practice science anymore. We worship it. We all bow to the almighty science, but it isn't practiced anywhere. It's all theoretical physics. It's all theoretical mathematics. Mathematics is not some kind of absolute construct. It's not some kind of absolute given. It is an art. It is an invention.
Well, they make people think that math is science. That's what they want people to believe, that math is actually science, and it's not.
No, and you have movable parameters in math, in mathematical equations, then you don't have any consistency. It means that you can get, ultimately, any answer that you're looking to get. And again, I should know that. I ended up getting a master's in business administration. I know all about the vast black hole that is theoretical mathematics. So let's leave it there. And I want to thank you, not just for tonight, Mike, which was amazing, but just for who you are, honestly, for what you do, what you've done, what you mean to humanity. You're the real deal, and you're a great example of what's right with this world. And I don't think I can give higher praise. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Charlie. I mean, all I do is just be Mike and do the best I can to get the information out there. And I'm what you see is what you get. I'm just an honest guy that wants to get an honest message out. That's it. And it's resonating with people, and that's a good thing, because, we need more, I think, honest people trying to get the word out, and you're one of those folks too.
Thanks very much, Mike. And just before I say goodnight, a reminder to everyone to check out Mike's albums, Leaving Dystopia and Hollow Moon. These are deeply encoded messages, and the songs become even more personal and endearing with each listen. They really are a gift that just keeps on giving. In the show notes, I'll provide the links for where you can purchase these albums, as they are truly worth owning. So again, thanks to Mike and to all our listeners, especially for keeping an open mind. And I recommend that over the next few days, just let this information wash over you, and then see how you feel about things in the coming days, as there